Welcome everyone to another episode of Vinny Makes the Hall of Fame Case for ... And Vinny Lospinuso, America's favorite sports historian, is going to go right to the ice. And we're going to be talking about the first ever American black hockey player to make the National Hockey League in Val James. So if you're thinking, wait a minute, that's Willie O'Ree. Well, no, that's why we said American.
Yeah, you got to focus on that because, yes, Willie O'Ree was the first ever black player, but he was Canadian. Val James is American.
Mm-hmm.
Two difference.
Right. And Val James is someone who's a bit been on my radar, not necessarily for the Hockey Hall of Fame. I think that might be a bit of a tall task.
It's a bit of a tall task, though they have been putting in, pioneers like O'Ree,
Right.
like Herb Carnegie, but I still think because Val James, because the Hockey Hall of Fame is in Canada, I feel like getting someone that is American for that is a bit of a tall task. I'm not saying he isn't deserving, but I think Val James, his best case, well, he's already in the Suffolk County Sports Hall of Fame. I should know. I work for it. But I do think he's a really realistic chance for the New York State Hockey Hall of Fame as well as the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame, which I think he absolutely belongs in both.
I'll throw another one out at you too. The AHL Hall of Fame.
Yeah, definitely. No question.
So let's look at his career before we sort of talk a bit more about that. So as you mentioned, grew up in was it Long Island? You grew up? I apologize,
yeah.
I don't know your area that well.
Yeah, Hauppauge, New York, and Long Island. Suffolk County.
Suffolk County is only in Long Island.
Yes, well, not to be confused with the one in Massachusetts, which is Boston. But when I think of Suffolk County, it's Long Island, which it's most comprised of Suffolk County and Nassau County. Suffolk County is Suffolk County, Nassau County, big rivalry there. But he's from Suffolk, Hauppauge, New York.
So as a junior player in the States, he was good enough to get drafted. This was in 1977, 166th overall by the Detroit Red Wings. Now, he never did play there, and most of his career was in the minors. He only had 11 games in the NHL, with Buffalo and Toronto combined. You got the Toronto, his Maple Leaf jersey behind.
He's also a Sabre, too. He's
Sabre, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so no points, but 30 penalties and minutes. And what he was a fighter. And not just off the ice, obviously, because I was reading an interview that he did promoting his book, Black Ice, that was done by ECW Press, a good company out in Canada, actually. And he was talking about some of the signs that he would sort of deal with, the racial taunts. He said it was every 30 seconds, every minute. And the way they did not police things back then, I don't think he's exaggerating one bit. I'm sure that's exactly what he went through.
No. People could talk about the racism that's in Canada. It doesn't come close to what people deal with in America. In fact, the reason why he even became a hockey player in the first place is really unique because, the reason as to why he even became a hockey player is because his dad was the manager of an ice rink. And that's where he trained and skated, and he got better and better. And of course, he decided to take on it professionally. When he was part of the teams, when he was in Virginia, for instance, the fans would bring watermelons, wear afros, and say the N-word and all the disgusting things. They were there because they came home from work and they would attack him and verbally abuse him. Everything else, it was horrible.
Right.
Horrible.
It was disgusting behavior, and thankfully that is not tolerated anymore, but he had to endure a lot of that, and he put a lot of that work on the ice. And yes, it was apparently a great pugilist, on the ice. And right now you're thinking, well, that's sort of barbaric, Well, it was a different game then.
It was a different game.
and 80s, you needed an enforcer. And what I was reading is like quotes from other enforcers. Like he wasn't a dirty player. He was there to sort of like make sure you're not screwing up with our main scorers. And
Right.
every team back then needed a player like Val James, and that's sort of like why he had a long career in the minors. I saw 630 games, 1,135 penalty minutes. I mean, that would never happen now, but it happened then, and he needed it. And he didn't lose fights too often.
No, he was usually very good at fights, and
Mhm.
I know it feels kind of gross saying that,
Well,
oh yeah, the black guy is the one that's the fighter. Yeah, but again, that's what his role was. It is what it is.
well, that was
Um,
his role, regardless of his race. That had nothing to do with
yeah,
it.
yeah. It was Rochester Americans where he mostly spent his time as a player.
Mhm.
And he's had his little stints with the Sabres for a few games in the Maple Leafs later on.
Right.
Um, yeah, he didn't become the first Black American until 1981, 1982. So it took a long time for that to happen. And, you know, afterwards, he became someone who taught the sport for many years. And most recently, he got into the Rochester Americans Hall of Fame, which
Mhm.
is good. He's he's someone who's a real pioneer over here, but it's also a real shame there's not many that are like him.
Well, but there's more and more all the time. I mean, we're still waiting for, and it's actually, where's Quentin Byfield from? Byfield from?
Canada.
Is Canada? Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
All right.
Mike Greer was the first ever American to be trained exclusively in the U.S.
I mean,
And
Brewer was good, but I mean, we're still waiting for that. I thought Seth Jones might have been that first Black American superstar hockey player. That didn't quite happen. He might have not really lived up to that potential that I thought he was going to have. But
I mean, he's been an all-star like a few years.
right,
He's
but I
but
mean, like, I guess I was thinking it was going to be at a higher level, but that's not neither here nor there. Uh, what we're looking at here with Val James, and again, I think he's not going to ever get into the Hockey Hall of Fame. I do think, though, there is a place for him on other halls, mostly the United States Hockey Hall of Fame. I think that would be a great thing for them. Why he may not be on their radar, I don't know. I know that they actually inducted a female before the Hockey Hall of Fame did. So
yeah, I would like to, as much as I would want to see him in the regular Hockey Hall of Fame. I just think it's a tall task. So I think the what I would focus on for him is, New York State, AHL, United States, because he's not going to get attention in Canada. It doesn't matter
probably not.
when or he just isn't, because again, they're not going to be focused on, American pioneer especially, but America doesn't do that much for him either, because they see hockey as a white man's game, and it's been seen that way for
Well,
many, many years.
to the NHL's credit, they're trying not to. I mean,
I'm
that's
talking about the people that are not the NHL. I'm talking about the people here in America, who are a lot of them.
right.
They
But
see it as kind of weird if a black guy follows hockey for some people.
I think here, the way I've always sort of looked at it, it's a middle class person's game because it's really hard to be poor and be good at and play hockey because the equipment is the most expensive in any sport. It just is.
Yeah, that's why the reason why I hate to like throw in like class politics and whatnot, but a big reason why there wasn't many black hockey players. Forget just the racial aspect, but also because a lot of them were usually much more poorer compared to their more white counterparts. That's why they usually play basketball compared to hockey, because basketball there's a court everywhere. You can play whenever you want. Where hockey, you need the right conditions, the right equipment, the right everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's simple as that. That's why basketball is the fastest growing sport. That's why soccer has been super fast growing. It's like the ones that are the most simplistic are the ones that grow the most, but the ones that need the most equipment sometimes kind of you can't really grow them
Absolutely.
as much.
Absolutely. That's sort of like why you can have a soccer power in Africa. What do you need? Two things that'll make a goalpost and a ball. There you go.
Like just two
Uh,
sticks even.
right. It's so much harder in hockey, and I think that's more of a class thing. And obviously, it's a race thing, sort of as other races have become the same wealth balance. But that I think is really the hard thing for that. My dog apparently agrees. That's Jasper. You can follow him on Jasper_the friendly corgi on Instagram. I might as well promote that if he's going to work at Neighbors. What do you think is? Do you look at this as a step, like to try and get him into the New York Hockey Hall of Fame first, and then approach the U.S. Hockey Hall? Like, is that
Yes.
your push, your personal push?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think New York. I mean, he just made the Suffolk County Sports Hall of Fame a couple years ago.
Mhm.
U.S. Hall, because they're looking at the entire continental U.S. plus Alaska and Hawaii, it
Mhm.
might be a bit more difficult, even though he is a pioneer. However, for New York State, for someone who spent the majority of his career, who spent most of his life in the state of New
No, I'm
York as a
talking
whole,
U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame,
U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame.
yeah, not U.S. Sports Hall of Fame.
I said I meant U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, yeah.
For
Because
U.S. Hockey, again,
you
they're
were
looking
mentioning
at the
Hawaii, and I'm thinking I don't think there's a whole lot of Hawaiians here who are going to be
well,
making
yeah,
that.
and I'm just
Oh,
thinking like the U.S. as a whole, they look at.
right.
Whereas with New York, he spent most of his entire life there is where he trained.
Mhm.
He's a pioneer. He spent most of the time in the minor leagues in New York State. Like it's an obvious one for New York State. He has to be in that one, and he
Mhm.
he would really complement everyone else because he's someone who's very significant to the history of the game here too.
Right. Okay. No, that's a good one. It wasn't one that I was sort of like thinking that you would do, but I'm glad you did. Uh, I look forward to the next few because I get to pick them. And if you want Vinny to do some others, and you can make a request, you can hit up Vinny, and if as long as it's something that he thinks he can make a case for, he will.
I'm not going to make a case for someone who has no chance or something like I don't know some first round bust or
Well,
something
let's
like
be
that.
honest, that's never stopped you before for someone who has no chance. You just have to feel passionate about
Yeah, that's true. I'll just
it.
focus on like the more local holes for some of those people, even if I
Right.
don't trust the voters to do it.
Right, right. But if there's someone that you can read the tea leaves. If you don't know that some like player X has got no shot at that, but you say, well, this is why they really, really should, but unfortunately they won't. That's different. We're not talking about like a career. I don't know, someone who flamed out real quick and didn't really do anything, didn't make a difference. But I've got a couple in mind. I'm going to tell you that offline. Who you're going to be doing next, by the way, before
Sounds good. That's
before we relocate to Seattle. And what? Oh, what's that? Oh, our other co-host here, Winnie. Winnie says she's going to have to trade in her Winnipeg Jets jersey for what the Seattle Kraken. You think? I don't know. You're named after Winnipeg. What do you think?
well, well, Jasper's still named after Jasper, and he hadn't changed names to someone from Barbados.
Well, that is true, but Jasper didn't have a. Jasper wasn't named after any place that had a professional hockey team,
It's true.
right? So, Winnie, what do we think we're going to do? You're going to be a Kraken? What's that? No, she says no. All right. Sometimes I use the dog as props. This might be why sometimes I have to hand in my man card because I have a little mini Dashin that's always on my lap. But anyway,
Yeah.
all good. So with that, check out more shows that Vinny does. And again, if you want to make a good request for him, he's all ears. He'd love to hear about it. And he
I'm
always
all
wants.
ears. I'm all.
There you go. Always wants to learn more about sports history. Always. So do I. But I'm not America's favorite sports historian. That's Vinny's job.
Well, that's because you're Canadian.
There's that. There's that caveat. Well,
Yeah.
it'll be in Seattle, so there you go. We'll see what happens there. We'll see what the people of Seattle say. I don't know, probably not much. But with that, wherever you are, wherever you may be, make this a fantastic day because it never comes again. Bye, everyone.
See ya.